The Motor Dream podcast is recorded on Camaragal land of the Eora Nation. It always was and always will be the lands of the First Nations of Australia.
This is the Motor Dream podcast.
Hello there, Connor McNally with you, and it's good to be back after a few weeks away because life happens at the best of times, especially during the FIFA World Cup. But the Motor Dream podcast is back and we've reached a big milestone. The show has reached its half-ton, its 50th episode, and the show has achieved a lot in those 50 episodes across the last 3 years. If you've been with the show since the very beginning or have joined along the journey, thank you for listening and long may it continue. Now, with the sentiments out of the way, let's focus on the episode itself. A few months ago, back in April, BMW had won the Bathurst 6 Hour for a record 10th time. The dominance is unprecedented for any kind of endurance motor race anywhere in the world. But this victory is significant for a very special reason. The winners of this year's race weren't just racing to win Bathurst Easter Enduro, they were racing for a greater purpose. They were racing for a cure. More about my guests in just a moment, but first, here's a quick reminder of what this show is all about, especially for our new listeners. I tell my guests that one day they wake up to discover that they've received a text telling them to check their bank balance. They then open up the bank app and they suddenly discover that they're instant billionaires. As soon as they discover their newfound fortune, they get an email from this mystery benefactor that tells them that they can spend anything that they like and they can buy any car, bike or machine that they want. There is a catch though. They are only allowed 3 cars, bikes and machines in their dream garage. It sounds easy, doesn't it? But trust me, as my previous guests have told me, it is very difficult to decide what they'd like to have in their dream garage. As always, be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast itself wherever you listen to your podcast, and be sure to check out the entire episode library if you've not yet done so. Also, be sure to follow us on our socials, which we'll tell you more about at the end of the show. At some stage in our lives, we've all been profoundly affected by those who have been impacted with cancer, be it a family member, a friend, a loved one, or even ourselves. Cancer in any form doesn't discriminate, regardless of race, colour, sexual orientation, gender, or wealth. Just hearing the dreaded words from your family doctor or specialist are heartbreaking enough for anyone. Fortunately, the advancement of medical research and treatments over the years have allowed for earlier detection, prevention, new treatments, and a greater hope for survival. But all of this comes with significant cost. So how is cancer research and motorsport interlinked? Enter Race for a Cure, an initiative created in 2016 by Sydney-based racers and siblings Ben and Michael Kavich, shortly after contesting the inaugural Bathurst 6 Hour. The charity was created after Ben's wife, Toula, was diagnosed with breast cancer and wanted to use motorsport and a major event platform like the Bathurst 6 Hour to not only raise further awareness of breast cancer research, but to raise funds by promoting the charity via their participation at the 6 Hour itself. Since the creation of the charity in partnership with breast cancer research, Race for a Cure has raised over $300,000 to fund vital research into finding a cure for breast cancer, in which 56 women are diagnosed with the disease every day in Australia. And this year, Race for a Cure has achieved its ultimate goal by winning the Bathurst 6 Hour. It was emotionally significant for not just Ben and Michael and the Kavich family. The win meant a lot for its third driver in the win, Tickford racing driver Tom Randle, who himself fought and beat testicular cancer. You could literally say it was a successful campaign. But the Kavich brothers are not resting on their laurels. Having raced in production car racing and V8 utes for much of their careers, they've jumped out of their comfort zones and have stepped into the hot frying pan of the TA2 Muscle Car Series, which supports the Hi-Tec Oils Super Series. The world of TA2 racing is very different to what they've been used to, but they are still racing with a great cause. A cause to continue raising funds for breast cancer research. When I recorded this interview back in May with the Kavich brothers, we chatted about their 6 Hour success, their passion for motorsport and the relationships formed with fellow racing families throughout the years, and their love for Fords. And not surprisingly, their dream garages have a bit of a blue oval feel about them. So if you're a Holden fan, block your ears. Jokes aside, it is a great pleasure to welcome the Kavich brothers Ben and Michael to the Motor Dream podcast. The winners of the 2026 Bathurst 6 Hour, Ben and Michael Kavich. It's great to have you on the Motor Dream podcast. Thanks for coming on and congratulations on winning the Bathurst 6 Hour.
Thanks, Connor. Thanks for having us on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Thanks for having us.
How does it feel weeks on from the success at the 6 Hour? Is it still sinking in, or are you still in a daydream about it?
Oh, look, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I think,
start with.
yeah, it's been great. I mean, honestly, it's still sort of sinking in. I'm always walking around my household singing King of the Mountain to my kids, and they're loving that. So it's a bit of it's a good thing, yeah. So it's fantastic. I think the realisation that you sort of won something like a race like that, it's something that we've dreamed about for such a long time.
I think the surprise for us is too that, you know, whilst we review Bathurst in all forms, you know, and this is our Bathurst 1000 at our level. The amount of people that have reached out, you know, and congratulated us. It shows that the 6 hour, the reach the 6 hour is starting to have is it's becoming one of those classic Bathurst events.
Yeah, I think it's the everyman's race. I mean, we used to be able to, you know, not everyone can race the 1000 now. It's obviously the budgets are massive, and you have to be a bit of a corporate entity to run that event.
Of course.
You know, so the 6 hour, I think, is within reach of the average man in that respect. Someone that, you know, gets a bunch of guys together, they can put a car together, they can put a good team together. It reminds us, and what appealed to us was, it's like the old days. It's like when you saw sort of 40, 50 odd cars on the grid, sort of, you know, starting from the you know, the start of 1000, probably in the 60s all the way up until probably about that
Early 2000s,
mid 90s, 2000s. It was you know, that's what's so appealing about that event. So yeah, but it's fantastic, and yeah, it's obviously a real honour to win it.
It's interesting that you mentioned the Bathurst from back in the 70s and 80s, and you grew up in that era because your dad used to race touring cars back in the 1980s, and I remember very clearly he raced the Yellow Pages Mazda, the RX-7, which you have still a family link with, even though you no longer own the car. You still have a family link with that car through the ownership of Kerry McMahon, who runs that car now, but also you've got that the link with the Commodores that your dad raced, and the link with the Grice family as well, and we'll touch on a little bit about that in the past and in the present. But I remember those cars very, very well. And to see the Kavich name finally succeed after so many years, you know, you've been your family team, privateers mainly, and to get that win in the biggest enduro for production cars, I mean, it's a big deal, as you mentioned. Like, it's now the 6 hours getting that credibility after 10 years of racing. And yeah, it must feel surreal that you're finally up there with so many of the big names in Bathurst history.
Oh, look, there's so many pieces to what you've just said there that mean so much to us. So, you know, you touched on our father. You know, he was more of a local Group C and Group A racer back in the day in terms of Amaroo and Oran Park, and that's what his budgets allowed. He never really had the opportunity to do the touring car championships and stuff like that. But Bathurst was his big event. You know, as kids, we went along with him to most of those. So that's obviously where the bug came from us, and obviously what we relate to. And then you've had all those other links that you've mentioned. You know, for example, even the Yellow Pages car, you know, Kerry was kind enough to allow us to do a bit of a photo shoot with it there a couple of years ago when we had the Yellow Pages on our BMW. But even the link to Thrive, who own Yellow Pages, that's where that link started for us. So this kind of repays that lineage for them as well in terms of the performance and the coverage at the 6 hour. And, you know, you, as a little boy, you follow your dad around with his helmet, you know, jumping in race cars at Bathurst 1000s. That's a pretty incredible experience to start with. And then, you grow up wanting to emulate that. You know, Dad did have some success being the Oscar champion, so he altered his career a little bit from road racing there. And to win a race like the 6 hour, when you've got names like Shane Van Gisbergen and Chas Mostert and all those other people that, you know, obviously see the benefit in doing that event, you know, because it is Bathurst, regardless of the level of it, and then they go out there and win it. And to, I guess, just have our name alongside those sorts of drivers, you know, it is a pretty incredible feeling. I keep saying to people, there's no real words to describe it for us. Yeah,
it's a real privilege. I mean, Ben's probably just touched on some really big names there, and you know, it's a hard event. It's not an easy event in terms of you really run around in production cars and you know, sort of a tyre that is, not a slick tyre. So it's, it sort of takes it back to the good old heydays of production car racing, through sort of 60s, 70s and that sort of thing. So, it's...
you have different levels of driver, you have different types of vehicles.
And you really you're managing traffic all day, and you're obviously managing the yellow flag or safety car situation. So, to have a good crew behind you is really important. We've obviously been associated with Garth Lawton Racing for at least the last 10 years we've been running up there, and he's one of the big reasons why we've been successful. We've had some good results in the past, but Garth and his crew built that car from the ground up. And they just did a stellar job. We've just been basically plugging away, and
we had no mistakes in the pits all day.
And to have someone like Tom Randle on board with us, Tom is just such a great guy. He's just as a personality within the sport, he's a hard racer, but he's a lot of fun too. He's such a talented guy. Yeah. And we have a lot of time for him. And I know a lot of people in motorsport fraternity do. Obviously, he's been through a fair bit, but he's a great guy. But he's so fast. It's fantastic to learn off someone like him, and he's obviously younger than us too. So you're never too old to learn. And it's always been great to have him. He's been with us for about 3 or 4 years now. So
and to provide an environment, where we put the deal together and we put a car together, and for a guy like that to want to come along and drive with us, and to give him a win. That means just as much to us, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a great ambassador for the sport and for our sponsors as well. He's such a brilliant guy. Can't speak highly enough of him, really.
I saw that qualifying lap that he did on the Saturday, and that was just amazing. He was not in the purple in the first 2 sectors, but in that last sector to do the time that he did. I mean, that was just insane. It was a very quick lap.
Honestly, there's so many other good, really quick guys up there. And then you got Will Davidson and a lot of sort of the touring cars or Group A supercar guys, or supercar guys, I should say, not Group A, the supercar guys. And, he's just so quick. He's just across the top. He was just...
even look at those last couple of laps. Yeah. The Campbell car had fresher tyres. The top had been saving fuel. And across the top there, he pulled away. Yeah, it was really just the speed down Conrod Straight with our car that kind of let that car pass in the end. Even though there was a penalty there.
But he's really quick, and they all are. They obviously have this level of commitment. You get to a sort of level of your driving, and to sort of get. That 10th here and there out of it, just the level of a commitment they have, and Bathurst is that kind of place, as that everyone is well aware. It's it's commitment. It's
you put a foot wrong and you're in the wall.
Exactly.
To quote big balls, you're going to have big ones around there, because it's kind of thing when you're going to have patience, but also understand that with the risk there's reward. So. They get it right just about every lap, where, if you don't, you're basically belly off a fence type thing.
It amazes me how, on a couple of factors, firstly, the cars are now as fast as what a Group A touring car was back in the mid to late 80s. They're doing 217s, 218s now, which just seems staggering. And to think when you go further back, those cars were doing 3 minutes 16, 17s in the 1960s. So they've made... a substantial leap in terms of time and speed and everything. And then to think about it, you've 10 years ago, you were racing a Subaru WRX and you had issues in the very first race, as I recall, but you've just kept persisting every year, kept turning up, and you've come close a few times, but this year you finally get the win. And that's just persistence, just to keep going and applying yourselves year in, year out, because it's that type of race that it's always unpredictable.
Yeah, motor racing, I think, for us is a bit of an analogy of life. Everyone in life is trying to, get ahead and look after their families and work their jobs and run their businesses and enjoy their pastimes. And life isn't always rosy for everybody. We've all got our own battles to fight.
Yeah.
And motor racing for us is a bit the same. But no matter how much it knocks us down, you still want to get up the next morning. You kind of go away going, "Oh, am I doing this?" sometimes, but you get up the next morning and go, "You know what? I think we can do this. Let's just give it another crack. Let's just keep trying. Let's keep working at it. Let's keep trying to make the car better. Let's make myself better." It's the challenge of all of that keeps you going back.
Yeah. I think Ben's touched on something that's probably quite personal for us in terms of there's, everyone has challenges and not only in life, and we've obviously run our own businesses, so there's obviously the day-to-day challenges you have with business as well. But I think to quote Nicky Lauda, that one of his speeches from a L'Oreal award many years ago, he said, "Look, I've learned more from losing than what I have from winning." I haven't won a lot, but I think when you lose and when you get close, you learn more from that, and you analyse that more, and you basically try and do better on that. So, you take that sort of mindset from anything in life, in business, and you sort of put that into your motor racing, and that's probably what we try and do. I suppose we try and make sure that we're always sort of try and push forward, and you surround yourself with good people. People that have got knowledge and with Garth and his team, they're not only they not only look after the car, but they're great mates. So we enjoy their company, but we also all strive for that one goal, and that is to win. And we always basically trying to analyse what we can do better after every race, if so to speak.
But you have a very, very different reason to race as well, and it's a special one. And you mentioned, you've gone through quite a bit of turmoil in your personal lives, but it's something that's close to your heart, as you mentioned, and that's of course Race for a Cure, and that's something that you've been doing since the end of the Bathurst 6 Hour in 2016, when Ben, your wife Toula, was diagnosed with breast cancer, and you started this charity to raise funds and to increase the awareness of breast cancer research, and it's been a very, very successful charity. It's raised over, I think, more than $300,000 over the last 10 years, and I guess now with the success of the Bathurst 6 Hour win very recently, has that awareness increased a lot more by virtue of your win?
Yeah, look, it has dramatically. I mean, with all, I guess, businesses and programs and people that track what's going on, the coverage that we received from the 6 Hour, and in particular the win, was obviously an emotional one for us, and it was received so well from everybody that's been in contact. But you look at the back end spikes in websites for, say, breast cancer trials, and they've commented to me that on that Sunday and the following Monday they had a spike in people obviously going, what's this breast cancer trials thing about? What's Race for a Cure about? And having a look. So that alone, whether the people that have gone and been a bit intrigued by the program we've put out there, and whether they've just gone to have a look or whether they've donated money, that's all something that pushes towards the end goal, which is to try and find a cure for that disease. And whilst we're obviously supporting breast cancer trials through Race for a Cure and raising funds for them and the work they do, that does spiral off into other cancers and other diseases. So it's not something that in the back end of it is constricted just to one type of disease. We talked a little bit about the trials and tribulations and how motor racing for us kind of reflects a bit of what we go through in life. The hardest day you could have in motor racing or in anything else in life is nothing like having your loved one affected by something like cancer in any form. So, we do what we do because it is a passion, as you say. It is a way for us to use our passion for the greater good, not just to be, these guys that run around cars and, search for some sort of glory for ourselves, our own personal goals. By having Race for a Cure, it helps us achieve something for the community. And for the greater good. And, people like Thrive are so supportive of that, that, they commit funds to that aside from the motor racing, because they see the benefit of that as well. And I think that's something that I think, has been recognised even in some of what some other teams have done. You look at the 12 Hour and what Scott Taylor has done. It's, and I really respect that. That hopefully, well, I'm not sure if we were the first ones to do something like this, but it maybe it's something that starts a bit of a trend, maybe, I don't know, but we're really proud of it, and it's something we want to continue to do, and even beyond us, when we decide we don't want to drive or race anymore, which is a long way away, I think, even as old as we are. We want to carry that on.
Of course.
It's great in the community, particularly the motor racing community. just how they got behind it as well. And a lot of people that we sort of race with actually, supported us and obviously donated for many years. So you really get a sense of that. We're not the only ones out there that are affected by. Our loved ones are affected by cancer and all forms of cancer, so to speak. So many different individuals that we've come across just through the motor racing program or Race for a Cure program that have contacted us and donated to the charity, and it goes a long way. So it is for us. It's obviously getting that message out there that there are, the work that breast cancer trials do to find, possible cure for certain forms of breast cancer. And like Ben said, they're not only just researching just about breast cancer trials and drugs that they can basically obviously help cure the disease, but those drugs go towards other cancers as well. So it's a great thing. So to win Bathurst was fantastic, but to actually probably raise the amount of funds and to raise the awareness is probably the bigger win for us in terms of that personal goal, so to speak.
And also Tom Randle, we know that he's had his public battles with testicular cancer and he's beaten that, which is fantastic. But, you all share that common goal that you want to find a cure and raising the awareness, not just with breast cancer, but any type of cancer. I mean, that's a very good drive to have to go racing and not just be out there competing, but also raise the awareness that, there are, campaigns to try and find a cure for cancer across all different forms.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like Ben said, I mean, you got to think about some of these people that are individuals that are out there and families that are out there that are going through this situation. So hopefully, if we can raise awareness in any way, and they can see us succeeding, then hopefully that gives a shining light for them.
Even for people that are going through that at the time, to know that there's other people that are going through it. It's kind of when something's a shared experience, sometimes it makes you feel better about the fact that you're going through it as well. And to think that hopefully people out there that are going through the experience see that there's people out there fighting for them, basically, to try to help their situation. That means a bit to us as well. You have fans even come up to us over the years at the 6 hour to sort of say thank you and to share their story, that sort of stuff. So it's even that, I've mentioned how the wider impact of the 6 hour, I guess we were alerted to that after we win, and the kind of contact we had from different people can congratulate us and talk about it, but it's the same thing with Race for a Cure. That's been happening for a lot longer now, over the period that we've been doing it, where people that you wouldn't ordinarily expect come up to you to say, "Hey, I saw this," and "Hey, thanks for that," and to at least it'd be part of it in some.
Sometimes they're not necessarily motor racing fans, but obviously they might see something, an article or something in a newspaper or whatever it might be, and that tweaks their interest, and that's fantastic. We've had people contact us by just general email or write letters, that sort of thing, and it's great because you're reaching people that is obviously it has affected, and they see it and they obviously admire what you do, and they want to donate to obviously help in any way they can, which is great. And that's the good thing about it.
You continue the legacy of Race for a Cure now in TA2 Muscle Cars, and you're now doing that series on top of your Bathurst 6 hour commitments that you've done for the last 10 years. It's a big step up to go from production car racing into something as purpose-built as a TA2 muscle car. How have you enjoyed that experience so far?
Look, driving the car is enjoyable. The organising and the learning of the car and the mechanics of the car, and trying to actually learn to drive it in comparison to what I've done in particular for the last 10 or 15 years, which is mainly production-based stuff, even going back to V8 Utes, was a production car. So it's been a massive step. I knew it would be a big step, and we suffered on the weekend. Our performance wasn't that great after all. I'd have to thank Ben Grice and all this, because having him there, he's another young bloke with so much talent, but he's also so great at engineering the car. So we've put a group of people together that's fresh for the car to look after it. So it's not done by GWR. We're doing it separately, and it's taken a bit of time to try to get our head around the car and for those people to learn it. And having Ben on board, as much as our performance probably didn't show it on the weekend, it really changed what we did in terms of the car. we did have some success in the sense that at one point there, Ben was about the fourth fastest car in the field in one of the races, even though the result didn't show it. Personally, I've got a lot to learn in how to drive the thing.
What's the biggest challenge from going from a production car to something like a TA2 muscle car?
Yeah, look, it's very raw. We're moving from in particularly our production car, a paddle shift type car that does the downshift flips by itself, and there's obviously a lot of technology in the car that you don't feel in ABS and all sorts of things that are helping you along the way in your style. And if there's a deficiency in your style, that kind of masks it a little bit. The production car tyre is not a kind of tyre where you can sort of trail brake all the way into a corner. You really have to focus on trying to break the thing as square as you can, and there's a little bit of trail braking, and then get the thing to rotate in a different way. Whereas the TA2 car, from everybody that I've spoken to, and my experience, my limited experience from the weekend, it's more like a early 2000s supercar, and there's the braking from the point you put your foot on the brake, you're obviously downshifting in a dog box type gearbox, which I'm not very familiar with. So you're throttle blipping while you're keeping brake pressure on the brakes at the same time, and all of that, which is I think where Shane Van Gisbergen is really showing the Yanks how to do it. All of that is actually helping in the process of getting into the corner and rotating the car. So at the point from which you put the foot on the brake and you start that process, you're actually turning the car as well further down the track, if that makes sense. So my struggles as a driver is I would get all that right if I did it early enough, but then I wasn't carrying my corner speed in the beginning of the corner. Whereas if I did it in a later phase, then I was not keeping brake pressure on like I should be in a few things. So I've got to get that phase right. Once I get that phase right and unlock it, then we'll be much faster. But yeah, it is a completely different beast, including the tyre. You've got this tyre that moves around a lot, whereas the production car tyre doesn't do that. There's this thing, you hop in it, and even on the warm-up lap, you drive down the straight, and the thing's wobbling around on its tyres, and you think there's something wrong with it, but it's actually meant to do it. So yeah, we need some more miles. We need to get our heads around, and there's so much it's adjustable on it in comparison to the production car. The production car's got supercar style brakes on it, married to an ABS, whereas this thing's got little brakes on it that are just basically straight off your hydraulic foot pressure. There's no help there. It's the production car has adjustable ride heights through its spring settings and a few bits and pieces, but essentially there's not a great deal you can adjust on the production car. It is production based, whereas this thing you can change wheelbase, pinion angles,
Comes with a handbook,
basically up and down on the springs and all sorts of things, Watt's length, everything. So there's a lot to tune.
They are a race car. They're a purpose built sort of hand built race car. So they tube with sort of chassis, that sort of thing. Where, like Ben just touched on, you still sort of race around in a production car, which is still pretty much a chassis car. It's you bolted a set of shocks under it and bigger brakes, and yes, you can tweak your computers and things like that. But the rules are still structured around that sort of production-based thing, which is great in some respects, but can also be a hindrance in other sort of respects. And I know there's been a lot of debate within the production car fraternity, and I won't go into that right now because it's like the can of worms. But these TA2 cars, they are definitely a different beast, and you can see why there's certain teams out there that do very, very well with this particular category. They are
incredible cars, incredible category.
Great category and great bunch of people to be around. People that run the series and own the series. The HCC, they're very professional, and obviously the whole parts truck is at the track. So any bits and pieces you need, you pretty much walk straight up to the parts truck. It's definitely
it's one of those new challenges that we have to get up every morning and keep attacking, basically.
And exactly. Yeah. So I guess it's challenges, but we'll get there in the end.
I guess it kind of helps. You've got Ben Grice in your corner as well, who's helped you try and engineer the car a little bit. He's had his experience racing both TA2 and the Trans Am series. He's obviously stepped back from racing that full time, but the fact that he came out from not doing much racing to help you guys out. And obviously that family link you had with the Grices prior to that, many years before, with your dad and Alan racing back in 1985. I think they raced an Amaru Park or Oran Park endurance race during the early years of Group A. I mean, it must feel nice to I guess, connect again with the Grices and use that advantage of the experience they had to develop the car and help develop your driving these very different cars to what you've been used to in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that relationship with the Grice family goes back to, you mentioned our father with the Yellow Pages Commodore period. That was actually, that's where that relationship started, because that car was purchased through Les Small.
That's right.
Which was Alan Grice's 1984 Bathurst car. So, we spent a lot of time with the family as children growing up, and then even through Ben's career, we've supported him with some sponsorship here and there where we could, through our own business entities, to try to help get his career along a little bit. So we've always been in contact, and even though it's one of those relationships we might not talk every month or every week, every time we talk, it's like we're old friends.
Yeah, Benny's he's a quick driver, and but he's also he's a good engineer as well. He knows his stuff. Those TA2 cars, he's very well adapted to them. He knows them sort of back to front.
And he's from the old school engineering too.
Exactly, yeah. Obviously, I know he's the Small family, Les Small and Jane Small, they've obviously still very quite close in terms of their friendship and circle. So I suppose he's probably got a lot of insight as to how these things work. He's probably worked on them a fair bit. He's probably got that sort of knowledge from that base of people as well. But Ben look, we'd like to see him out there actually more often.
Yeah.
He's definitely deserves it. He's a hard charger. He gets in there and he's always keen. He's keen to have a crack. We would obviously we continue that relationship in some form. But for the season, obviously, we just try and plug it away, get this thing sorted, and get sort of Ben sort of tuned into it, and see how we go.
You guys grew up around cars, around motorsport when you were a young age. As we mentioned about your dad before, and he obviously did a lot of the Sydney events, Oran Park, Amaru Park. Both tracks now gone, sadly, and both tracks a lot of people really have a lot of memories of. What are your earliest memories of being around your dad and being around the tracks, around Amaru Park or Oran Park? Where did that love begin?
I actually look, we used to go to Amaru Park a fair bit because that was probably really his home circuit, I would call it. So he did the Hi-Tec Car Series. So the fondest memory or earliest memory, I do recall, we used to, I'm sure everyone remembers, but they used to have like a lot of rocks on the stop-go corner. So you used to go and sit on those rocks. And as a kid, I
do remember that.
We used to go play in that playground and watch the cars. And we would always be in the workshop, his panel shop, always tinkering and playing with cars or mucking around. I mean, actually, the first real fray in terms of on cars was he bought us a buggy. We had property. We used to live at property out at Badger's Creek, which is now the new airport. And he bought us a buggy which had a blown motor in it. And I must have been about probably 10. I think Ben was about 13 or so to speak. I can't remember the actual correct ages, but I think it was about there. So our role was that we had to replace he gave us another engine and said, like, if you guys replace it, we'll show you guys how to do it in terms of pull it out and do all that heavy lifting stuff, but you guys have got to do it. So we did it. And we put it in and it was stuck in gear because we had to move some selectors or something, so we had to pull the engine out and put it back in again. But that was our first real sort of basically, mechanics, this is how it all works. And we started driving out around the paddocks of our property. And I suppose the bug starts from the fact that you're at this racetrack and you see that and you want to sort of get behind steering wheel, and you used to sit in the cars, his race cars at work when they weren't even being used, and you sit there and pretend you're driving. That was the buzz for us. That was it.
And Amaru Park has a very big link to us because, like, the earliest memory I have is like going to that little playground you mentioned to watch Dad race his RX3s. I think it was a Sports City or something, or an RX3. I think they used to have an under 2 litre series or something he raced in.
I remember the day that Romano basically stuck it in the top of the hill. I remember that day very, very clearly.
So Amaru Park was kind of our childhood, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we spent a lot of weekends. I suppose a lot of kids out there would be out and playing football or doing things like that. Our parents either had a bunch of things that we would be in the workshop working or we'd be at the racetrack. And that was our life, basically. So motor racing was going to follow in some way or other because we always wanted to sort of re-emulate our father in some respect, because that's the first person you look up to is your parents. And
it's also Dad's crew or race team were people that were mates that were either mechanics or electricians or whatever. And back in those days, they'd pile into his workshop in the afternoon and work on race cars. And that carried right through his whole career, where he had, he might have had a small group of 5 or 6 mates that were his core crew. And then that grew to the Group A days where there was 10 or 15 people that were mostly all volunteers. There wasn't really anybody paid professionally to work on the cars. Les Small used to obviously do the main prep, and then at the track he'd have all his mates facilitate, the pit stops and everything else. And they were our family basically. Like they were in our house. So we were in the workshop. They were there working on a race car.
Coming home from school, and sometimes the mum would pick it up to school and take us to the workshop. So we would be at the workshop with all his friends there. So she would do dinner for all of them. And mum's she's renowned for all her cooking skills. Was back in the day, I don't think cook as much anymore. But we used to be there with them. So that was always, so they would show you something. And then it was like, you're hanging around, and as a kid, you're just sort of always intrigued by how, things work. And that's sort of how the bugs sort of start.
And there are those times like, with Oscar, that group of people used to jump into vehicles, and we'd be chucked in the back of a VL Commodore with mum and dad and trundle down on a Thursday night all night. And then they'd race all weekend, and then Sunday they'd pack up, and we'd fall asleep in the back of the VL Commodore and trundle back from Melbourne against school on Monday. Well, there's the times I thought, I can recall as a kid, my dad took me out of school early and threw his Group A car in the back of a banana-style truck.
Yeah,
that was one of his mates, and we trucked off to Adelaide. We did a photo shoot for Yellow Pages somewhere, and then we trucked off, drove past my high school on the way to the races, and trucked off to Adelaide to do the Adelaide support races. I think it was like 1987 or something.
Wow.
Yeah, 86, 87.
Yeah, so it's anyone that's in motor racing, in terms of whether they're professionals or whether they do it as a pastime or a hobby, that lifestyle of traveling to the events, being with a group of people you love to be with, other competitors that you like, even the ones that you don't get on with sometimes, those rivalries, that's motor racing. It's a wonderful sport.
I think the stories that we probably tell and reflect on, I think up and down pit road, everyone would have those sorts of stories. And that's the great thing about motor racing, because that's what it is. It's just such a big, broad community, but it's such a small community in a lot of ways too. Like everyone knows one another or something. I know him. And when you're sort of state-based, it becomes more closer. But when you go sort of a national base, so people sort of know one another, and everyone's pretty good to one another. And that's the great thing about it. There's such a small community, but such a large community in that respect.
It's even amazing to think things that have happened. Like we were too young to probably be in cars at the time, but Dad raced in the Bathurst 12 hour with a fellow when it was first initiated as a production car race.
That's right.
And one of the drivers, he wasn't doing so well in terms of the speeds, and I didn't think he was going to make the 20% rule or whatever it had at the time.
That's right.
And I remember, Jason Barguana, who ended up being a legend of the sport, walking into the pits to talk to Dad and the crew to see if there was a drive there.
Well, I think
in hindsight, they probably should have put him in the car.
Well, I think they wanted to try and stick him in the car. But I think the guy who actually owned the car was the driver. He just wasn't at the speed, and I think they tried to convince the guy.
But there are little things like that happen over time, and you think back and think, wow, that was a kind of a meeting with what would be future royalty that you don't even think of.
Exactly, yeah. That's fascinating. But it's interesting to listen to some of these stories that you talk about. And I remember Amberoo Park so well. One of my earliest times I went to a racetrack was at Oran Park, and it was a state level meeting at the time, or restricted meeting as it used to be called back in the day. And it was eye-opening, because just seeing all these people who are doing it as a hobby or a pastime, it was so fascinating to watch. And I knew a former director of the ARDC, sadly passed, no longer with us, by the name of Gary Smith, a lovely guy. I don't know if you are aware of him, but he was part of the ARDC back in the day. But Amberoo Park was just a great circuit. It just had this great atmosphere. Obviously, the camaraderie was so good. It was a tight little track. It was so fun, and I'm sure you guys had a lot of fun as well. Did you ever get a chance to do some laps around Amberoo Park, or
I did. I probably got more of an opportunity than Michael, because I started racing HQ Holdens, was the first foray I had out on a track. We never did karting or anything like that. And then Dad had, obviously through the Grice relationship, because if you recall, Alan Grice had his
That's right.
He had like a driver school there at the track.
That's right, he did too.
Dad had participated in So, I go to my first HQ race and Dad's taken me out for a bit of a drive on the day before and said, okay, when you come over the top here, do this, do that, which was all stuff he always did really well at Amaroo. And then when he got his tuition from Grice, he was even better there. And we go out and here I am as a 16, 17-year-old at an HQ race qualifying third against all these guys because Dad had given me a few secrets about Amaroo. So I fell in love with it straight away. It probably was, aside from Bathurst, my favourite motor racing circuit that I've ever been on. But so, yeah, I did some HQ racing and I did some Formula Ford there. I think that was about it. But Mick only got the experience, I think, towards the end.
I built a historic touring car, so it actually won Tirana. There's another backstory to that one. We're going to that right now. But my first race actually was, it was a combined sedan event at Amaroo on the last sort of Amaroo meeting.
Oh, yeah, that in August 1998. Yeah, the very last,
so
Butcher's
my very
Picnic
first
race.
event.
Yeah.
So and I had a ding-dong battle with a guy on an XY Falcon. And geez, what was his name? He used to race in Arts as well, I remember it. But it was, I've still got the videotape at home. But that
Colin Bond commentating.
Yeah, Colin,
that's right.
It was, Bondy commentating. So
they're giving you a rap for getting sideways.
I just come and stop going and just get on the gas and the thing just slide out to the wall. It was such a great track. I sort of fell in love with it too because it was such a small track that you're always working. You never had a sort of moment to sort of have a bit of a breather. And I wish I had more of an opportunity to race there. And it was great because it was an amphitheatre in a way. It was like a Coliseum for fans. Apart from the back part of the circuit, you could just about see everything. So you could sit on the hill and where Stop Go was and come on the pit straight. I mean, it was just not probably great in terms of safety standards compared to what today's tracks are like. But as a track, it was almost a bit of a Bathurst-esque track where if you made a mistake, you made a mistake. It hurt you. Even when you ran off the road there, because the thing was basically rocks and sandstone, you'd hit a gully and basically the car would just about launch itself. But that was my first and really only sort of meeting I ever did there. And obviously crewed for Ben for many years before that as a young teenager in the HQ. So we used to go there quite often when Ben was racing. And it was always a nightmare to get out of there after you load the car up because the traffic jam going out of Annangrove was a nightmare. But it brilliant. Like Amaroo Park, if any multi-millionaires and billionaires out there want to go and reinstate Amaroo Park in some way somewhere else in the country, I think I'll be there hands down.
Yeah, we'll go race there.
I'll go race there any day of the week because it was such a great circuit. And Oran Park, I'll tell you what, one of my first memories of Oran Park, and I'll probably get a little bit sidetracked here.
No, that's all right.
We went to a day-night meeting with our parents.
Yeah, that's right. Sat in the grandstand.
I remember that as a kid. I reckon I was only about 7 or 8.
Watching the headlights come sideways.
I remember the Appendix J's coming over the dog leg. And they were literally, because it was nighttime and they were just, the old AHs and HRs, whatever they might have been at the time.
Yeah, brakes glowing.
And you just, the smell of it. And that's what probably, you have all these other things that probably, why you want to get in the road motor racing. That was because obviously our father. But I think when you, as a spectator, but also as someone who wants to be involved, motor racing has such an appeal because it's such a visceral sport in the sense that you smell it and you can feel it. And look, other sports are like that in some way, but when you go to a racetrack and you can smell the brakes and you can, your tyres and the fuel and the noise, it has that visceral feel to you. You're sitting there at the start-finish line and you hear those, every single car basically on the rev limiter and basically and the ground sort of shakes a bit.
That's a bit, I've always likened it to the modern-day Roman chariot race. It's gladiatorial, you've got these men in their machines and they're out there banging doors and trying to one up the next guy, and there's a chess match at the same time, and obviously the different forms of it, whether it's sprint cars or Grand Prix racing or touring cars, and whether it's long distance or sprint races, they all have their own little intricacies about how you operate with it. It's just, I guess we're probably just banging on here, but that's why we have such a passion for it. It's not just a childhood experience; it's a whole.
Well, it's like it's like gladiatorial contests with the V8 Utes, which you used to race, Ben, and that was like production based as well. But V8 Utes were like massively popular for so many years, and I know Super Utes is an evolution of that now. But when you race V8 Utes, I mean, that was a completely unique experience in itself.
It has to be one of the most enjoyable times of our racing as well as the most frustrating, because it was just an incredible series. It was run so well. When you think back on it now, the bang for buck in terms of a competitor for a sponsor, it was all there. You had Ford and Holden, so the tribal thing was there. The fans loved it, and we were never adverse to a bit of door banging and a bit of, roughing up another competitor, and they rough you up, and that's how it is, There were times there where we got cannoned and it was just a bit ridiculous, but you learn to deal with it. But yeah, that category, it is very different now, the form of it they've got. But that period, I think, and that category, I think it's going to go down in history as the epitome of a support category, because it just had everything, It took a while for us to get our straps, and we started to hit our straps there in top 5s and top 10s towards the end with the FG, when we unfortunately had to then focus on business and stuff, so I could step out of it. But and then it changed not long after that anyway. But that holds a very dear place in my heart.
C2 cars are all sort of similar, spec in that respect. Hold on forward, I think, great fan appeal. Nose to tail for the whole pack. You got them on basically on a tyre that not a lot of grip, not a very wide tyre. I think you have that kind of formula. Any sort of support sort of category,
like the 86s.
86s are a good example of that. I mean, there's some great talent, and you see some great close racing. It's enjoyable to watch, but as a competitor, I think it's exciting and a little bit frustrating too, because if you don't get the right sort of sometimes luck in some ways. But it's definitely some memorable times and some great friends that we've made from the category as well over the years. I think you go through these different forms of categories and you meet different people, and sometimes you know each other from a distance in a way, but you end up becoming great friends from it.
Yeah, so it becomes part of life's journey.
It becomes part of life. And these people, everyone has a story to tell. So,
one final question before we move on to the next part of the podcast. Of all the categories that you've raced, which has been the most satisfying? I know, Ben, for you mentioned the V8 Utes, but overall, like in all the categories you've raced, which has been the most, the one that's close to your heart?
Oh, look, for me, I'd have to say the V8 Utes, because, we were working with nowhere near the running budget of the guys around us. There were times where we could put 6 tyres on, but we were putting 2 on. And we were running it ourselves. It was out of our own shed with a few mates and bits and pieces, so we didn't have the necessary, I guess, engineering support to help us. And I had to work very hard in my driving to try to get it right, because as Mick said, they had a small tyre and they weren't an easy thing to drive by any stretch of the imagination. Whenever I got a top 5 or even down Simmers Plains, I finished second at one point there. I didn't have the success that I would have liked in terms of winning races. I had a few times that I led races and then the car let me down on bits and pieces. But a second place or a top 5 in a V8, you knew you deserved it. You knew that to be there, you had sort of 15 or 20 guys at any meeting that could do the job. And if sometimes a bit of luck went your way was part of it, but yeah, to finish a top 5 in a V8 Ute race for me, that was like, wow, we've really done something here. Obviously the Bathurst win will hold sway over every other performance I've ever had at this point. But yeah, I'd say V8 Utes are probably my thing.
Michael?
I probably haven't had as many categories in, so to speak, as Ben in terms of a full sort of stretch of a season. I spent a lot of time probably mostly in production cars, and I've done sort of HQs and historic touring cars. I think my favourite category probably would be production cars. I mean, there's just such a variety of different cars. I used to really love historic touring cars. I think the rawness of it, and but it's a different type of racing. You'd be real careful of putting your nose up in the court up the inside of someone, because obviously some of these guys had genuine HOs at the time, so rubber corners with them. So yeah, so production cars would have to be probably the one category that's close to my heart. And in the future, look, there's probably other categories that I'll probably jump into. So and hopefully have an opportunity to sort of at least get a pedal of different categories to sit there like. So Bathurst, I feel the 6 hour has always been pretty much probably more so not a category but the event for me, because I like the endurance stuff more so than sprint stuff. I like to get myself into that, basically probably that rhythm and long stints in the car and obviously the pit stops strategies, that sort of thing. So I'm not the fastest driver out there, but once I sort of, I reckon I'd like to play the long game. So that's why I really like the endurance stuff a lot. If I could do more endurance racing, then that would be my sort of cup of tea, so to speak.
This is the Motor Dream Podcast.
All right, boys. We know you love motorsport. You love cars. You've grown up around them because of your dad and his involvement with his successes in motorsport with Group C, Group A back in the day. But I wanted to know a little bit more about what makes you tick as car enthusiasts. So I want to ask a few questions. Not too difficult, but I will do my best. First and foremost, the first car that you drove when you were when you were kids growing up. Do you remember the earliest memory of driving a car or having the first experience of steering a car?
I think the first experience for steering a car would have been paddock bashes when we had our property there at Badger Sweet that Mick mentioned before.
Yeah, probably the buggy. Yeah,
we had that buggy, but we also had a Datsun 200B as another one that was
Yes.
it was T-boned very hard on the side. It was a wreck that got, and so you have this.
We also had a Volkswagen that we chopped the guards off.
That's right, we did too.
I used to drive that around. It was just a sort of just a Volkswagen Beetle. We had the buggy and the Beetle, and you had this crap. Yeah. We had paddy bashes everywhere. So
they'd be the first cars.
Yeah, and we also had motorbikes too. So we probably learned on motorbikes initially, and then as most people would in terms of properties.
Mind you, and this is not something I advise people to do in this day and age, but I do recall Dad had a Phase 3 in the late 80s. I remember as a tiny tot. Yeah, right. Maybe 7 years old. He sat us on his lap and let us do the steer as he's driving along the country roads at Badger's Creek.
You couldn't do that now. You could not.
No, I won't do that now. But that would have been the first, I reckon.
No, I don't remember. I don't remember any of that, but I do remember probably the paddy bashes. I remember, the property was substantial enough that you could have a couple of cars on there. We had a couple of motorbikes, so you would race out the motorbikes, and then you'd jump in this little paddy basher because Dad would get these wrecks that they were literally write-offs. So the owner wouldn't want him anymore and pay a couple $100 for him and bring him home on a trailer, and we'd go goal and teach us those things. And I think that's probably how his generation learned. A lot of them learned in paddocks and things like that too. So
as you do.
That was my first recollection.
What about the first car that you owned?
Oh,
it's an easy one for me.
What's that like?
I had a Datsun 1200 Ute, which was because the guy that ran Dad's race car at the time,
Paul Dalloway.
He's passed away now. God bless his soul. He had one, and he was a suspension expert, and he had it lowered with triple S wheels on it. And he ended up putting a rotary in it, and this thing was the coolest thing you ever seen.
That's right. He had a rotary. He had a third. Did he change it?
So
I remember that car.
That particular car is a Citadin and dream out only one. So when I finally got to the point where I could buy a car, that was the first thing I went for.
Beautiful.
My first car was I went to Parramatta Vehicle Auctions with my father and bought a 79 Escort, and it had an RS front on it. Remember the sort of like the scoop fronts on it?
Yep.
A little spoiler on the back. I can't remember if it was an RS or not, but it was like a straight 4-cylinder carbureted. I bought it for $700 and I drove it around for probably a little while. Then I sold it for about $1,400. I remember making money on it. My dad was a wheeler and dealer, and so was my grandfather when it came to buying and selling cars. So some of the things we used to do, even when we used to go motor racing, is we used to buy and sell cars, and that would be your motor racing budget. So you would apprentice panel beating, and you would go and buy a car, you would fix it, clean it, sell it, or you'd find, it's not like today where you find a marketplace. Back in those days, you used to get the trading post.
That's right.
And you used to steal the trading post. Oh, he's a bargain. I'll go and get that. And that was you'd wait for the truck, the paper truck that would turn up and basically have the paper on, and You beg the guy to have a pay at midnight. You get it, you ring people, go, oh, mate, need that car you got? I'll come and get it now. I'm like, mate, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing?
Kids these days,
just to get a bargain so you can basically get your time money to go racing.
We used to find out where his first drop was.
Yeah,
which was King's Cross.
King's Cross, you go
to King's Cross. You used to drive in there and wait for it.
Wait for the newspaper to go and get it. So I had many cars in the day, but that was my first road car. And it was a good little car, actually. I probably had it for about 6 months and surprised I sold it, but yeah.
You made a profit. That's the most important thing.
I'll tell you what, if I had it now, I'd make more of a profit.
Exactly.
I can't get him anymore.
The first road trip that you guys remember, do you have an early memory of like travelling to a race meeting?
To a race meeting.
I remember going to Adelaide with,
I think, yeah, as a kid, that would have been because that was before Oscar. So, about 86, 87.
Yeah, Dad had that fairytale truck, which was a little tyre going down.
Yeah, one of his mates had an F350 with a banana back style ramp
You were
truck.
saying, yeah.
And they stuck the Yellow Pages Commodore on the back of it, and off we went. And we were down south. I can't remember exactly where, but I know where we ended up. There was a pine tree plantation.
Yeah,
so it was a fair way down south. We're cruising along, and Dad's probably going a bit faster than he should have, and the front tyre blew on the truck, and she took off into the Armco. And
Jesus.
we ended up stuck there trying to fix the truck. But
we followed you down because we were in Paul's Datsun Ute.
Yeah,
the gentleman at Ben said he liked his Ute, so we were in that Datsun Ute, and Mum was in a car behind us, so we all sort of followed each other down through into Adelaide, from New South Wales down through Hay Plains in Adelaide.
That was actually an interesting event. So it's a slight side note if you've got time.
I do. Yep.
Obviously, because all of Dad's crew were volunteers and working guys, so we chucked that thing on the truck. We head down to Adelaide for the event, and it's only Paul, his team manager, essentially, Dad, myself, Michael, and Mum for the first sort of Thursday, Friday, and everyone else rolled in on Friday night. So on the Friday for practice, they used to have the touring car crews out the back where kind of the V8 Utes and all that ended up, and they used to put all your jacks and your tyres in the back of a vehicle, drive out onto the track into the Formula One pits, drop everybody off, and then back into the back of the pits while the session was on and do the same thing again. But obviously, Dad didn't have any drivers, so Mick and I were it. So we got that gig, and then obviously because we did such a good job in the little Datsun Ute with the rotary in it, we kept continuing on the Saturday. And
I don't think it had a rotary at that time. I think it was still a 1200.
So I think on the Saturday we're motoring through the pits to pick up the crew, and there's all these F1 cars and the touring cars are all coming after their session, and guys are working on them. Here we are, like down to pick up the crew, and an official pulled us up, and he's like, "How old are you?" And I'd heard that to be able to drive in Adelaide, you had to be 16 or something.
16.
So I said, I'm 16. And he says to Mick and the passengers, how old are you? He goes, 18. It's like, why are you in the
I was a kid. I didn't know what to say.
we were like in fear of our lives.
Fear of our lives because we were going to get in trouble and get Dad disqualified.
Anyway, so the official has a go at the old man, and they
didn't know. Back and say, whatever, mate.
And I'll never forget, we went out for dinner that night, and Alan Grice, we were like all upset that we were going to get Dad disqualified just with driving this Ute, and Grice is going, don't worry about it, it'll be fine, I just feel a bit of it.
Yeah. And I think it was 86 because I sort of still remember that meeting. I actually remember we are getting a sidetrack here, but I remember Dad had to do something in a corporate tent with Yellow Page. It was right on the chicane, and he bumped shoulders with Anton Senna, and I was with Dad. I was holding his hand, and I sort of looked around, and Dad said, I think that was Senna. And he had the Lotus. He was in the Lotus team colours at the time.
That's right.
I think it was there, or could have been in the pits. But I sort of I was very young. Like I was probably like 10, if that. I can't even remember how old I was. I was 86. But I remember that at the back of the pits, they had all the transporters, obviously for all the touring cars, and we were next to Johnson when he had the
Mustang.
The Mustang, yeah. And there's probably other stories we could tell you about that event, but we wouldn't get into too much detail. But that was that like sort of those events, they sort of stick in your mind. And when you see some of that raw footage now of that, those F1 cars there,
takes you straight back.
It takes you. I still remember they had these. Mum bought us these. They were like binoculars, and what they were like a like an S-shaped style of cardboard box
with a mirror at each end.
And a mirror at each end. So if you were short, you could sort of. No, I think
like they used in World War One to see.
Actually, that's what they were. They used to see how the trenches in World War One. So when you look through it, it had a mirror here, but the mirror up the top there will reflect what you're actually looking at.
So you can see the
So
cars.
you would literally basically sort of do that with it, and being sort of yay high, not very big, you could sort of get higher over the fence, and you can see there's cars coming through. I remember mum bought us one. I sat on the fence like literally just about half the weekend watching these cars come through because they were just so quick and so noisy, and the way they bounced around. And like as a kid, you're like, just holy crap! Like, and you could like get so close to the fence back then, you could see everything. I mean, I'm not Formula One cars are like today, but back then they were like literally beasts.
Oh, it astounded me. I remember standing where centre chicane is as they turn left and go away from you up towards the first right-hander there. Forgive me, I can't remember the corner. And just to hear them come through centre chicane and, and obviously brake and go back a gear. And then once they appear...
Wakefield turn, I think, from memory.
Yeah, I think it is, yeah. 2 or 3 gears and all of a sudden they were gone. And it was like
So sometimes you'd even get some of the raw fuel that's coming out of the exhaust pipes and spray all over it. Like, this is how great it was.
Yeah. Great. If I had a time machine, I'm going back to that.
Absolutely. Same here.
Hey, go back to the 70s and 80s, mate.
What about the kind of music you listen to when you go on a road trip, when you're travelling to a race meeting?
I'm in the podcast now. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so you're on my list.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a couple of great podcasts, but I listen to podcasts, and I sometimes just put it on. You get streaming services, so I just sort of basically just play like sort of alternative or rock music or one of those mixes, and you just go to stations. So rock's always my thing.
I've got a bit of a playlist that if I like something, I just whack it in there, and I'm an 80s tragic, I love 80s music and rock and roll stuff, got a bit of Def Leppard and Guns N' Roses, that kind of stuff.
Nothing wrong with Def Leppard. Nothing wrong with that.
I took my kids to Fredvo a couple of months back just to do some mountain biking, and the wife picked us up because we had the bike, so she came back and got us from where we were, staying in Jindabyne, and we put on one of the boys put on Metallica, and there was like 5 kids in the car just screaming at Metallica, and my wife's going, "Oh, what's that, idiots?" Can't remember what it was. It was one of Metallica songs, but it was so funny. And I was thinking, I thought that skips generations, but it hasn't, which I'm sort of quietly pleased about, because the fact that my boys are sort of listening to sort of rock music and things like that, and my friends, their young children are the same age as my kids, but they're about sort of 12 and 10. They're listening to that as well. So his poor daughter, she was with us. She had her headphones on. She wasn't interested at all.
She was too busy listening to something else that was.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she wasn't enjoying it at all.
All right. What about getting your license first go? Did you guys get your license first go, or did you have a few attempts?
Well, I didn't, because apparently I was speeding by 2 kilometres an hour in 60 zone. So, like, the minute, and like everybody that wants their freedom, the minute we were 17 or whatever it is to go and get our P plates, I took my Dafton 1200 Ute and off I went.
As you do.
And funnily enough, I had got my CAMS license the week before. So I had my CAMS license before I had my road license.
Oh, that would have been frustrating.
And Russell Scaife was actually one of the instructors or testers at my observed license test for my CAMS license. So when I went to get my road license, I did everything right, but apparently I did 62 in a 60 zone or something. So they knocked me back the first time. I had to go a second time.
Yeah, no, I failed. I failed a few times. I think I went in my own car, and then I decided to actually get a driving school and a lesson in driving school and go back with the driving school. Got it straight away. So I don't know if that was a wrought in the system or if it was just been.
You're going to say it that way.
I'll say every I want, mate. The day I've got my license. So it took me a couple of times. I can't remember. I think I got my road license prior to getting a racing license. I probably had it for a good couple of years. I sort of waited a bit till I got my racing license.
What about the best car you've owned? Is there a car from, be it a race car or a road car, is there one car that stands out?
It's a couple of cars, I think. Oh, God.
Jeez, the best car I've owned. I had an F350 truck I built, which was one of my favourites, the truck. To be honest with you, we had an M2 competition recently that we as panel leaders, we bought as a wreck and repaired it and got it re-registered and drove that around for a while, and I loved it. I've never been a BMW tragic or a brand tragic as such, but I've got to say our experience with the BMWs in the last few years, they're just an incredible car.
Yeah, I had that same car. We sort of shared it a little bit, and actually that was it was a manual shifter though, it wasn't paddle shift. which gave a bit more of an experience and a bit of a raw feel driving the car. But
mind you, I did have an FPV Super Pursuit Ute, which we still own, and one of our staff uses.
The M series stuff.
Is it obvious that you're Ford fans here, boys?
Yeah.
I honestly, I think like people say about even the 6 hour, I say like, oh, BMW always winning, but they're winning because they build such good products. There's no other car manufacturer out there at the moment that really is, you know, from a production car base, that's really building a product like the M Series car. I mean, there are, but from where I sit and from a production car racer's point of view, there's no other package.
The technology's hard to get
The
around.
Mustang is starting to get a lot better.
Yeah.
The Mustang is probably the closest thing to the M Series of sports stuff. I mean, with the Dark Horse and things like that. So, I'd love to own one of them, but definitely the M Series car. I bought a Tirana two-door that I turned into that sort of actually one race car, obviously a mock-up. And that was a great car to drive as a race car. I don't know what they're like as a road car. A little bit on the way the steering wheel sort of sits and stuff like that as an old 70s car, but that was a lot of fun as a race car. You know, very nimble, a little bit under braked, a lot of horsepower. So you can, you know, get the car stopped and turn and rotate it very, very easily, particularly if you just want to get the rotate on the throttle, you can sort of get the car sideways. A very, very fun car to drive, and around the kind of cars it is, around the kind of cars it's competing against, you know, you get a good combination of sort of horsepower and setup. You've got a good package there. So,
But that wasn't your favourite road car?
No, I don't know. Look, I probably haven't had a lot of fancy road cars. I've always just had sort of utilities or work vehicles.
Fair enough.
So I'd have to say, if anything, probably the BMW at the moment is really my favourite sort of road car that we've had.
What about the worst one? Have you had a car that you've gone?
We've had plenty of those. Plenty of those.
I had a Corona.
Gus the Magic
And
Dragon.
it had the number plates were GUS something. So Ben kindly named it Gus the Magic Dragon.
Well, you just answered my question about naming a car. So there you
Yeah,
go.
there you go.
Two birds with one stone.
And the rear window, the sealer in the rear window had rotted away so much the rear window used to shake.
Oh, no.
And the problem was that if you had all the windows up, you'd end up getting gas fumes sometimes into the car, so you'd have to drive the windows down. You know, so it was a classic. I think we might have bought it for like $150 or something from an auction.
Ben, you got anything to match that?
I've got dozens. There's so many I can't even.
What about the Statesman that I had? That 350 Statesman I had one plate I used to lock up.
I used to buy cars to sell, and then Mick used to drive them. What have I had? What's the worst car I've had? Because I've had some doozies.
It's a Suzuki Hi-Jet.
I'm actually driving around a Kia Picanto at the moment.
Didn't you have a Suzuki Hi-Jet? Like those little trucks. That
You mean the Daihatsu Hi-Jets?
Yeah, I had Daihatsu Hi-Jets.
That's it, yeah.
But, you know, I didn't mind those, even though they were crap boxes. I think I probably the worst car I had is I had a Daihatsu high roof van. They used to make those big vans.
Yep.
And it was a 5-speed, but fifth wasn't working, so I had to drive around in four as a 4-speed. It was my everyday driver because I was towing a race car with it. That was probably the worst vehicle I had because it had holes in the floor that you could see the road through it. If I remember, I quickly patched up the outside and put some stripes on to make the outside look right, but the inside was bad. And I actually remember showing up to take a girl on a date with it. She didn't want to get in.
Can't say I blame her for that.
Yeah. Well, she still come along, so I don't know. I must have been convincing.
A couple more questions. Best road trip that you've been on? Doesn't matter if it's a race, like to a race meeting, or just a normal family road trip.
I went on a really cool road trip with she wasn't my wife at the time, she's just my girlfriend, but my wife now. And we went up to Fraser Island.
Oh, nice.
We'd only been dating for about 6 months, and I had a Holden Rodeo 4 drive, and we went up through Coffs and that. And every beach we stopped at, we went forward driving, and you know we camped in Benalla, which was another story, which was a funny one. But we sort of drove all the way up, and just sort of stopped at Cairns and did the whole sort of road trip up that way. It was awesome too, you know. And my wife's English, so she's, you know, for her it was a massive eye opener to the country. She'd been here for a couple of years, but she'd never really been that way. And that was probably one of the best road trips I've done. I did a road trip in Europe many years ago on a motorbike on a Ducati with a mate of mine. And that was fantastic. So that's probably my best road trip outside of Australia, around Europe and a couple of places. But I'm going back 25 years ago, and I was a young man and I had young bones. I wouldn't do it again.
What about you, Ben?
I'd probably have to say, with my wife Toula, I got her a little NX coupe many years ago when we were younger, when we first sort of started going out. And one Christmas we had nothing to do, and we decided, let's just take off somewhere.
Yeah.
And we just jumped in that thing and we just drove north. No idea where to stay, what we were going to do. We just started driving, and we ended up stopping in a couple of places. And I think we ended up in Port Macquarie. And funnily enough, we bumped into George Madiki and his dad there at a pub. Happened to be sitting there, and they spotted us, and we spent a bit of time with them. I think we drove up a little bit further and then came back, but just spent basically 2 weeks driving up the coast and driving back. It was great.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We do the ones with the boys down racing was a lot of fun. We just did one to Winton with the BMW last year, which was a lot of fun. We went down and we all followed each other and come back together. That was great.
Yeah, Australia, we have some great roads in Australia. I mean, I'd love to do the Great Ocean Road and that sort of scenic route. So I can get back to Europe and do a couple of road trips there with the wife, and obviously when the kids are a little bit older. That'd be fun. I know there's probably some trips that we could do as a family, but also there's trips that you want to do with your mates as well. You want to go around, drive some fast cars and some cool roads. So I'm not sure where we can do that in the near future because you trying to manage that between business and all the rest of it.
Of
racing
course.
is hard.
Last question before we move on to the Dream Garage: who taught you how to drive?
Dad.
Yeah.
He taught us how to drive in the sense of even operating a vehicle. And then in terms of racing, the first racetrack experience I ever had was we had this, Dad used to help out a driver training school that used to be part of and had links with the Brock Club, that used to the Brock Commodore type club.
HTT Club.
Yeah, HTT, sorry, you're correct, HTT Club. And we had this old VH Commodore that was two-tone green with a holly-carb red on it. We took that out there. And he guided me around, and then they let me loose on the track to run around with everybody. So, the old man would have been the first experience in terms of learning how to drive. There's been many since in more technical matter. In terms of operating a vehicle, learning how to drive, definitely Dad.
I think that, by memory, I think it was Dad. I think you might have even showed me a little bit when we were probably paddy bashing, but initially Dad would have showed us. And I think from a racing point of view, Dad and similar situation. He used to do the driving school, and he had a HCT Brock Commodore that was a 6-cylinder turbocharged VL.
We never should have sold that.
It was a very rare Commodore. Apparently, that Brock only built so many of them, and he actually sold it to a friend of his, and it went missing. Remember, it was the guy he sold to was devastated. But that car, I got a chance to drive it around Oran Park. That's where most of the driver training stuff happened, and that was my real first sort of probably motor racing sort of on the track experience.
Okay, boys, this is the reason why we got you on the podcast. You wake up one morning and you head into work one day, get yourselves ready for the day, and as you're settling in, you get an email that says you get a text message and it says check your bank balance, and you think this is some kind of scam. You think, come on, this is ridiculous. But then you get a bit curious, you decide to check your bank app, and you suddenly discover that you guys have become instant billionaires. You don't know how or why you've got this money, but it's happened. But then you get a message from this mystery benefactor via email that says you can buy any car, bike, or machine that you want, but you're only allowed 3 in your dream garage. So with that in mind, what's your first car, bike, or machine you'd like to have in your dream garage?
For me, this is gonna be a weird one. People are gonna go, really?
Go on.
So my first one would be a Resto mod style F100, like a dent side 79 F100. So I want all the mod cons, the AC, the power steering, the Apple Play, all that stuff. With a nice of those knock-on style wheels they had in the 60s and 70s. That'd be the daily driver. Coyote engine, C4 transmission.
Oh, okay. So you would have it re-engineered, so a classic Ford F100, but modernised. So it's a Resto mod, as you said. Oh, I do like that.
The Resto mod. And then I wouldn't want the Cobra.
Did you say a Ford XB Cobra? Is that right?
Sorry, no, an AC Cobra.
AC Cobra, a genuine or a replica?
Oh, I'd have to say a replica. There's a couple of companies in the States doing modern versions again, slightly modern versions.
It's a black draft.
Yeah, backdraft, but one of those style Cobras, I think, definitely. And then, geez, what was the third one be? So I'm hard with this stuff because I'd buy everything if I could.
Of course you would.
Did you have a race car in there?
Yeah, we allowed to have a race car in that.
Absolutely, you can.
Oh, well, that's easy. Yeah. Ford Sierra RS 500.
Really? I was expecting
one of the many famous ones, the Jetta one. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I'm surprised because
either a DJR Sierra, the Mediki Sierra, the Mobile Sierras. I love those things. The Texaco Sierras. They were my favourite touring cars.
I'm surprised you've mentioned a Ford Sierra. I was expecting either your dad's Commodore or the Mazda. I was expecting one of those in the collection.
Well, see, even that's a hard one because what you've just alluded me to, because you're correct. I love groups. I love the Group A stuff.
Yeah.
But the Group C stuff just gets me. So I know that Commodore is around, restored back to the Group C. Benny Grice actually showed me a photo there the other week. So that would have to be one as well. So that, yeah, you're correct. That would be a hard toss-up now that you say that.
All right, well, how about this? And I'm going to allow a fourth one. Have that Commodore that you mentioned plus the Sierra. How about that?
Perfect. You've nailed it.
Michael,
spot on.
Michael, what would you have?
Geez, I don't know. I sort of car stuff, I'm not kind of person to have exotic cars in the garage. I'd rather have like race cars, so to speak, you know. So I'd probably have it at like your daily drive, and I'd want something that sort of is useful for a lot of things in terms of you could, you know, go out, you can go bush. I could chuck the push bikes on it.
A BMW M4 touring wagon can get.
I don't know.
That would be nice. That'd be nice.
Yeah, there's so many great. That's the thing. Like, there's such a variety out there when it comes to cars. I suppose race car wise, I'd probably say that the VK Commodore, and I don't mind the Group C era side of things. I don't mind it was in the Group A format when Dad had it, but I do like that Grice's that were when it was the '84 Bathurst car.
No, that was a good car.
I always liked the M3s, sort of the JPS sort of around the same era as the Sierras.
That's my favorite. That is my favorite M3 of all. I've wanted one of those. Not the race car, but the road car variant. Yep. I've wanted one of those for years, and I know they're not cheap now. They're like, you want to get a pristine one, they're more than $100,000 now, but they are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love the Group A race car. If you could get like a Stinson Group A sort of M3, that'd be awesome just to have it sitting there because. Just down to the finer details of that little gear knob that looks like a golf ball.
Yeah, I
don't know how brilliant is that.
That's cool.
And I really like. I mean, I probably follow a lot of those custom sort of shops and custom sort of build stuff on Facebook. So if Ben was going to go the AC Cobra, I'd go down the road of buying a Porsche Stinger.
You've mentioned that. Yeah, like you're one of the few people that have mentioned that the Porsche Singer, and a few. I've had a couple of guests in the recent past that have mentioned the Porsche Singer, and they are utterly beautiful. Like,
I love the idea that they're bringing something from old to new, and I think there's even a company in Germany that I think they call themselves HWG, and they're bringing back the old. Mercedes-Benz, like the old DTM style Mercedes-Benz with the big wing and everything on that race. They had one race at the 24-hour Nürburgring recently, and they're doing the road version, but they're only releasing 250 of them. And they're all like a carbon fibre body on them. But I like that style thing. So the Stinger is something where it's old school, but it's got that new sort of flavour to it. You know, it's got the new technology in it. So,
and do you notice what he did there? When he said that because I've got the AC Cobra, he's going to go that way.
Yeah,
because he knows he's going to walk into my garage and say, "Here, I'm taking your AC Cobra for a ride."
Exactly. You just do a straight swap. I like it. I like it.
It's just, there's probably the three cars that stand out for me. Like the RS, like the Sierra, the Ford Sierra, even as a road car, they'd be absolutely awesome to have.
Oh,
but I love the race car version of them too. So I'm always kind of thing where.
Well, I'm in my garage, so you can drive that.
Yeah, exactly.
You can have that one.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're probably the three cars that I'd I'd pick straight away.
Perfect. That's really cool. I love that. It's different. Both of your garages are different, but I love the interchangeability that, I'll have that car, you have that car. No, I'll take that. Yeah.
Why not?
Guys, it's been such a great joy to chat with you. And again, congratulations on the Bathurst 6 Hours success. It's been a great joy to talk to you both. And good luck with the TA2 Muscle Car Series for the rest of the year. And hopefully we'll see you at Bathurst again next year to defend your Bathurst 6 Hour crown, because I think only one team has gone back-to-back at Bathurst, and it'd be nice to see maybe you go back-to-back, be the second combination.
Yeah, we're going to try and equal Simon and his
Simon Hodges and young Ojada.
Ojada, yeah.
So Juice,
that'd be awesome. We're definitely back next year for sure.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming on.
Right, thank you. Just before we go, if anyone wants to have a look at, and I should have mentioned this earlier, the Race for a Cure stuff, just head to www.raceforacure.org.au. You can read all about us, and if you feel like donating, please do. If you're donating to a good cause, 100% of your donation goes to breast cancer trials.
If there's one feel-good story in Australian motorsport this year, it's the Kavich brothers winning the Bathurst 6 Hour. I could not think of a better group of people who have worked so hard to not just get the win, but to continually fight to find a cure for not just breast cancer, but cancer in general. And I have no doubt that their dad, Tony, would be exceptionally proud of his two boys engraving the Kavich name into the Bathurst history books. And let's not forget Tom Randle and his Herculean effort of assisting the brothers to not just take pole position, but the race win itself. He deserves the win as much as the brothers do. And of course, a huge shout out to Garth Walden, whose GWR racing outfit finally claimed a much-deserved Bathurst Enduro outright win, having come awfully close on a few occasions. My profound thanks to not just Ben and Michael for their generosity and time, but also to Diane Falzon for facilitating this interview. If you want to make a donation to Race for a Cure, head to raceforacure.org.au. Donations over $2 are tax deductible for Australian residents. You can also follow Race for a Cure and the Kavich brothers in the TA2 Muscle Car Series supporting the Hi-Tec Oils Super Series. The next round coming up is at their home circuit, Sydney Motorsport Park, on July 17 and 18. You can buy tickets from the Sydney Motorsport Park website or at the gate. If you can't make the track, live coverage is on SBS Viceland and SBS On Demand, as well as KO Sports, Fox Sports 506 and the Hi-Tec Oils Super Series YouTube channel. And you can also follow Race for a Cure on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. We've put the links to their socials and their donation page in the show notes, as well as the Motor Dream podcast website. The address to visit the show website is themotordream.com.au, where you can listen to past episodes, find more information on each of our guests, and also on the show itself. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram with the handle The Motor Dream, and you can start a conversation about your dream garage by using the hashtag The Motor Dream, or drop us a line on what your dream garage would be, or leave us some feedback on the show itself. Our email is themotordream@beastproductions.com.au. Lastly, make sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, and now you can find us on the Podbean and iHeartRadio apps. Thank you for listening, and remember to drive or ride safely out on the roads wherever you go. We'll be back for another episode in a couple of weeks' time, where my guest is a woman who is breaking barriers not just on the racetrack, but as the owner of an all-female team in the newly created Mustang Cup Australia Series. Her name is Imogen Radburn. Until then, we'll see you next time on the Motor Dream Podcast. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Motor Dream Podcast. This series is proudly produced by Beast Productions.